Okay, so the United States is currently at war with Iran. 13 American service members are dead. Gas prices have jumped nearly 90 cents a gallon in 3 weeks. And this past Wednesday, Congress sat down the nation's top intelligence officials, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, FBI Director Kash Patel, and asked them a very simple question. Why did Israel strike the world's largest gas field against the president's own wishes? And not one of them could give a straight answer. So this was the House Intelligence Committee hearing. March 19, 2026, Rep. Joaquin Castro asks Gabbard directly, are Israel's war goals aligned with ours? And she just sits there, dead silence. Then she says, I'm thinking carefully about what can be said in this open setting. That's the Director of National Intelligence, thinking about whether she's allowed to tell Congress why we're at war. So watch this clip. Watch Castro lay out the timeline, the South Par strike, the assassinations, the gas prices, all of it. And watch every single intelligence official in that room dodge, deflect, and stall. Pay close attention to who answers and who doesn't. And here's what I want you to listen for. Castro asks Ratcliffe, do you know why Israel struck that infrastructure, despite the president saying it should be off limits? Watch what happens. Our own CIA director essentially says, I wouldn't speak for Israel. We are in a war because of what Israel did, and our CIA director says he can't speak for them. That's the whole thing right there. Remember, as you watch this, 13 families lost someone, 200 service members wounded, and the people in charge of knowing things are about to tell Congress they don't really know why we're here. If you're not subscribed, hit that now. Let's get into it.
A friend of the United States would have been the person to negotiate any agreement with. The president explicitly said that the United States did not strike Iran's energy infrastructure because, in his words, having to rebuild it, quote, would take years. Yet this morning, Israel struck the South Pars gas field, the world's largest natural gas reserve, triggering Iranian attacks on Qatari gas facilities. Oil prices are up 15% in the last 24 hours. In San Antonio, my hometown, where I represent, the cost of gas has gone up nearly 40% in 3 weeks. Last night, the president said that the United States knew nothing about the attack and called on Israel to stop similar attacks on energy. Israel denies this and says that the attack was cleared by the United States. So my question is, what does the intelligence community assess Israel's goals in this war to be? And are those goals aligned with the goals of the United States?
I'm thinking carefully here about what can be said in this open setting versus a closed setting.
Are the goals aligned?
The objectives that have been laid out by the president are different from the objectives that have been laid out by the Israeli government.
And how do they differ?
We can see through the operations that the Israeli government has been focused on disabling the Iranian leadership and taking out several members, obviously beginning with the Ayatollah, the supreme leader. And they continue to focus on that effort.
And how does that differ from our goals?
The president has stated that his objectives are to destroy Iran's ballistic missile launching capability, their ballistic missile production capability, and their Navy, the IRGC Navy, and mine-laying capability.
So the death and destruction continues. The economic cost to the United States, to Israel, to the Gulf states, and to the world continues to increase. So I want to ask you, to the best of your knowledge, do you know whether Israel is supportive of the president's call to make a deal with Iran?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know Israel's position on that.
And to what do you attribute Israel's decision to strike Iranian energy infrastructure, despite President Trump's call to keep those facilities off limits?
I don't have an answer for that.
So they ignored the president. Do you agree with that?
I'm not privy to any of their deliberations or what went into their calculus in launching this or other attacks. We are not involved with in the operational element of this. We're providing continuously on a daily basis the intelligence assessments of the events that are occurring. And
I guess I know the FBI can't because they're domestic, but can anybody else at the table provide any insight into that?
I guess I'm not sure what the question you're asking, Congressman Castro. I guess a couple of things. The goals that the president set out are clearly defined. The DNI related those. What was not included is a goal of the U.S.
Well, Director, let me start with this. Let me start with this question. You asked what my question is. Let me reclaim my time, Director. Come on. Do you know why Israel decided to strike that infrastructure despite the fact that the president said it should be off limits?
I wouldn't speak for Israel.
What do you guys know? We're at war. What do you guys know?
We'll have to take that for the record.
Yes, let's take it for the record.
All right, so let's talk about what you just watched. Because you just saw the Director of National Intelligence admit on camera that the United States and Israel have different objectives in this war. Different, her word. Not mine. The country whose strike on South Pars dragged the entire Middle East into an energy crisis has different goals than we do, and nobody in that room could explain why we're going along with it anyway. Israel struck Iran's South Pars gas field despite explicit warnings from President Trump to leave energy infrastructure off limits. South Pars is the largest natural gas reserve on the planet, and it's shared with Qatar, one of our closest partners in the Gulf. And within hours of the strike, Iran retaliated against Qatar's Ras Laffan facility, which processes roughly a fifth of the world's liquefied natural gas. One strike and the entire global energy market went into freefall. U.S. officials are privately expressing outrage. And the thing is, Trump himself said the U.S. knew nothing about it. But an Israeli official told CNN the strike was coordinated with the U.S. So which is it? Because both of those things cannot be true. And when Castro asked Ratcliffe point blank, do you know why Israel struck that infrastructure despite the president saying it should be off limits, Ratcliffe's answer was essentially, I wouldn't speak for Israel. Think about that. The CIA director cannot or will not explain why our closest military ally defied a direct request from the president. Either way, that should terrify you. And this strike didn't happen in a vacuum. The day before, Israel took out the one person who could have ended this diplomatically, Ali Larijani, Iran's de facto leader, the man the New York Times said had effectively been running the country since January. He was killed in an Israeli airstrike on March 17th, the night before the South Pars strike. And that timing matters. Larijani was the back channel. He was the guy the administration would have needed to negotiate any kind of deal. Analysts described his removal as eliminating the off-ramp. One Iranian political analyst said his absence at this critical juncture will cast a deep shadow over diplomacy and decrease the chances of finding a low-cost political solution to end the war. And now, the new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the man we killed on day one, is more hardline than his father. Even Gabbard admitted that during the hearing, so we killed the pragmatist and got a harder target. That's not strategy. That's escalation with no exit plan. So let me just make sure the math is right. We killed the supreme leader on February 28th. We killed the guy who replaced him as the decision-maker on March 17th. The very next day, Israel hit the world's largest gas field. In 3 weeks, we eliminated every possible negotiating partner and then blew up the global energy supply. Gas is up 30%. The Pentagon is asking for another $200 billion. And Trump's own former counterterrorism director, Joe Kent, resigned saying the administration was pulled into this by Israel and there was no imminent threat. I could not write this if I tried. And what did Gabbard say when Castro asked if Israel even supports Trump's goal of making a deal? She didn't know. The DNI doesn't know if our ally supports the president's own stated objective. That's not evasion. That's an admission. She's telling you without saying it that Israel is running its own war inside our war and we are just along for the ride. Meanwhile, you're the one paying for it. Global energy markets are in panic mode. Oil prices surged 15% in 24 hours after the South Pars strike. Gas in parts of Texas, like San Antonio, went from $2.50 a gallon to $3.66 in less than 3 weeks. Nationwide, we're pushing $4. Brent crude is above $100 a barrel for the first time since the Russia-Ukraine shock. The Strait of Hormuz is effectively closed. And the International Energy Agency, and this is real, is now telling people to work from home and avoid air travel to ease the crisis. Economists are comparing this to the oil shocks of the 1970s. And the war is 3 weeks old. And that's what Castro's frustration was really about. He asked every question you'd want your representative to ask. What are Israel's goals? Are they aligned with ours? Why did they defy the president? Who approved the South Pars strike? And every answer was silence, deflection, or we'll tell you behind closed doors. The American public is funding this war with their wallets and their sons and daughters, and they're being told they're not allowed to know why. And Castro's final moment really said it all. He looked at this panel, the DNI, the CIA director, the FBI director, all of them, and essentially said, "What do you guys know? We're at war. What do you guys know?" That's a sitting congressman on the Intelligence Committee telling the intelligence community to their faces that they are failing at the most basic part of their job, informing the people's representatives about why Americans are dying. And that's the deeper problem. This hearing was supposed to be about worldwide threats. Instead, it exposed the biggest threat of all, which is that Congress has no idea what the endgame is. The intelligence chiefs couldn't clarify whether the U.S. and Israel are even on the same page. Castro highlighted the disconnect between Trump wanting a deal and Israel actively pursuing regime change. 13 service members are dead, the death toll is climbing, and the people who are supposed to be steering this cannot or will not tell the American public where this is going. That's not oversight. That's a blank check for a war with no exit. So here's the line. When someone brings this up, here's what you say. Our own intelligence director admitted the U.S. and Israel have different war goals. Israel struck the world's largest gas field against the president's wishes. The CIA director said he can't speak for Israel.